Members, the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor. City of Adelaide Council meeting on Tuesday the 8th of February 2022. The Lord Mayor is in the chair. This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside of Australia.
Acknowledgement of country. Council acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land and acknowledge that they're of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. We also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations who are present today. Acknowledgement of Colonel William Light. Council acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site for Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the works of the City of Adelaide. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of this city. Amen.
Will all present stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives in defence of their country at sea, on land and in the air. Thank you, members. Please be seated. Good evening, everybody. Item 5 on the agenda is apologies and leave of absence, which we have none. That takes us to item 6, which is confirmation of the minutes from the 21st of January and the 27th of January 2022. And I'll look for a mover. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Members, any discussion? If not, back to the move to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. There are no deputations this evening. Members, we did have a petition was received on Friday the 4th of February at the time of the agenda publication, and in accordance with standing orders we need to advise that the petition received on Friday with 398 signatures requesting Council to uphold and enforce the current and legal land management agreement in place for the proposed development site known as The Loft, located at 156 to 172 Franklin Street, and opposing the current development plan. 15 emails were also received in support of the petition. The petition does not relate to an item on the meeting agenda tonight and therefore will be presented at the next ordinary meeting of Council on the 8th of March. Thank you. Members, that takes us to item 9 on tonight's agenda. 9.1 is the advice recommendations of the Audit and Risk Committee. I'll look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Mackie, and a seconder. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Mackie, any comments? No? Deputy Lord Mayor? Members? If not, to the mover to sum up. Councillor Mackie? Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against, that is carried. Members, I'm going to see what we can move on block. Just note, please, that item 10.14 is the... the procedural, thank you. Just went blank. Is procedural, and we will come back to the nominations. So if you could let me know. 1, 2, 15. Item 10.1. Councillor Couros. Item 10.2. Councillor Martin. Item 10.3. Item 10.4. Item 10.5. Councillor Couros. Item 10.6. Councillor Martin. Item 10.7. Mayor. Item 10.8. Mayor. Item 10.10. Apologies, 10.9. Missed 10.9. Thank you, Councillor Knoll. 10.10. 10.11. 10.12. I've got Councillor Martin. 10.12. 10.13, 10.14, 10.15. Members, if I could have someone move a motion that we move on block 10.3, 10.4, 10.10, 10.12, 10.13, 10.14 and 10.15. A mover, thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and a seconder, thank you, Councillor Mackie. Members, any comments? If not, to the move to sum up. Members, to the vote. Those in favour. Those against. That is carried. Councillor Martin, you voting? Was there a problem?
Yeah, I thought you said you were moving 10.14 on block.
No, 10.3 was the first one. 10.1 was called out.
No, 10.14.
Oh, 10.14. Only the procedural.
Oh, okay. No, I want the procedural full.
Okay, given that's already been voted on, it's already been voted on, we can speak to it at the time.
Lord Mayor, I thought I put my hand up.
Sorry, we didn't record it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Members, we go to 10.1 on tonight's agenda, which is Kingston Terrace. So, and Councillor Cross, you put that out, and then Councillor Mackie, wish to speak. Councillor Cross, are you moving?
Yes, I am. I'm moving the variation.
So, you're moving an alternate motion? So just to be clear, we're deleting 2 and 3?
Yep.
So 1 and 2?
Yep.
Okay. I'll look for a seconder.
Lord Mayor, can you get the screen fixed? I can't see read it.
Just for the meeting's benefit, unfortunately we've had a technical difficulty with that screen. There is a cabling issue which our IM department have confirmed, which requires a visit from our cabling people. So unfortunately we will be without that TV for tonight. Sorry.
Yes, I think Judy, to just make it bigger. So, and noting that 2 and 3 are Deleted. Correct. Okay, I will look for a seconder, members. Anyway, I saw Councillor Acknowledgement. Councillor Couros, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to thank administration for the report. However, in speaking with the residents, it needs further work. In their opinion, I understand that council, and with their experts, saying that the life of the road is expected to last a lot longer, but there are other issues there that are of great concern to the residents there. And when in receiving this report, I felt that it needs further consideration and further consultation with the residents. And I thought the way forward is that asking administration to work with the residents to look at short, medium and long terms. There's a lot of pooling of water that happens there in Kingston Terrace. There's issues with the verge, it's very high. There is a lot of dust that comes from the parklands, where cars park on the parklands coming into the residents' homes. So I think this is a great way forward to be able to keep ensuring that the residents are able to enjoy the street.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Did you wish to... Members? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment. And the amendment is 1 stays as it is, 2 is removed and replaced with requests designs proceed for the works described at paragraph 18 in the attached report.
Sorry, I might get you just to repeat that, Councillor Martin.
Sure. Request designs proceed for the works described at paragraph 18 in the attached report. To mitigate ponding on the northern car parking bay at Kingston Terrace. Ponding on the northern car parking bay on Kingston Terrace. And added to the strategic asset management plan and budget for 22-23, that's 22/23, and added to the strategic asset management plan and budget for 2022 and 2023. Yep, that's it. And 3 is request the administration prepare detailed designs so this is 3. 1 remains, 2 was the wording I gave you previously, and 3 is request the administration prepare detailed designs for the heritage bluestone curb, comma, the water table to improve drainage, table to improve drainage and road resurfacing for the southern side of Kingston Terrace, comma, between Fuller and Francis Street.
Sorry, Councillor, I'll get you to slow down just a little bit.
Yep. Request the administration prepare detailed design for the heritage bluestone curb, the water table to improve drainage and road resurfacing for the southern side of Kingston Terrace. comma, between Fuller and Francis Street in 22/23, comma, (2022/2023), comma, in time to be added to the asset management plan and budget, time to be added to the strategic asset management plan, if you like, and budget for the years 2023/2024 and 2024/2025, comma, together with a plan and detailed costing, for upgrade options for the intersection of Kingston Terrace, detailed costing for the upgrade options for the intersection of Kingston Terrace and Jerningham Street.
Councillor, I might interrupt you. I'm getting governance advice that this is too far of a departure from the original motions. I might ask governance to intervene.
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. The motion as moved was about the administration reviewing and investigating. What is being proposed is actually doing. So it's the intent is to do some investigations before we're going on and potentially doing that. So it's going that one step further and actually asking for action.
Lord Mayor, I hear what the administration is saying, but the material that's being put forward is already covered within the body of the report. I am bringing forward item 18, which is nominated by the administration, but which it says it wants to defer, and I am bringing forward what is proposed at 3 from the body of the report, which is in paragraphs 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 and 28, and I am asking for those things to be prepared in design form that would allow for that to be completed in time for consideration for insertion in the asset management plan and the budget for 23-24, 24-25. So this is precisely what it says. It says, well, whatever the recommendation is, I'm asking that 18 in the administration's report is brought forward, and the matters which are covered in 23 to 28 actually have a deadline by which designs, not costs, but designs are completed so that they can be considered in that context. Without that detail, without saying to the administration, I want a plan so that it can be considered for 23-24 and 24-25, then there is no scope for it to be allocated over multiple financial years, which is the intention of that, which would inform the design which is requested in the financial year 2022-23. So it's all very logical. It is not asking for expenditure beyond that which is contained in the administration's reference at 18.
I'll just get some advice, Councillor Martin. CEO.
Through you, Lord Mayor. All of the things that Councillor Martin has said are correct. Where the advice from a governance perspective, however, comes from is that the intent of, as I read it anyway, the intent of the motion that is currently before the Chair is seeking the administration to review the current condition of the assets, etc., and so it's actually deferring and asking the administration to do a particular kind of work, and the proposed amendment, in my view, and my advice to this meeting, is markedly different from that. It's a significant departure from the intent of the motion before the chair, and therefore ought to be moved as a separate motion depending on the success of the motion that's before the chair.
Well, I have moved this as an amendment, as a separate motion. This is not an amendment to the motion that was put. I am moving this as an amendment that takes into account the first part of the previous motion, but changes the second part. Look, the difference, the key difference between 2 and what I'm proposing in 2 and 3 is that I've just put timelines on it, whereas the other one says, let's have a look at the near-term.
Councillor Martin, so Councillor Kouros has done an alternate motion, so yours is an amendment to that alternate motion.
Correct.
So, well, the advice is saying that it's a departure from the alternate motion.
That's correct.
Mm.
All right. Well, if paragraph 3 is not there, does the amendment that takes into account 1 but inserts 2, does that represent a significant variation? Given that the ground
so the point of difference is that's requiring expenditure, whereas the first one is requiring further review. So that's the point of departure, even though it is contained within the report itself.
This is brand new stuff to me, Lord Mayor.
I'm going with governance advice, Councillor, so I'm just seeking further advice. Okay, so Councillor, the advice is you could request the designs as part of the review, so the designs as described in paragraph 18 as part of this review, that they look at the designs but not to proceed, because the proceed is a budget directive.
So if it says request designs proceed for the works described, design, that's okay.
Through you, Lord Mayor. I think the suggested wording can read something along the lines of paragraph 2 reading asks the administration. Well, could you scroll down? Sorry, Judy. Yeah, thank you. Ask the administration to review the current condition of assets contained within the report, and as part of the review. Includes designs as described in paragraph 18.
Okay, and can I say also designs for, and it is specific, because all I want is the heritage bluestone curb, the water table, to improve drainage and road surfacing for the southern side of Kingston Terrace between Fuller and Francis.
Yeah.
I'm asking for money just for designs as part of the review.
So it's incorporated as part of the review.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, look.
Okay. If you just give us a quick second, and we'll just make sure that makes perfect sense from what's on the screen in front of you. quick look through that. So Councillor Martin has got a secondary and Councillor Moran, or you may choose to incorporate that in your alternate motion.
Lord
I think
Mayor,
we're both trying to achieve the same thing anyway, so
this is the motion that I'm proposing here.
alternate, your amendment, but
My amendment,
Councillor
okay.
Kouros could incorporate that into her alternate motion so that you
And
achieve what
the
you
words,
both want.
Described in paragraph 18 in
Yep.
the attached report,
Yep.
full stop.
And seeks.
That's contradictory because the short, medium, long term is at odds with that which I'm proposing. I'm asking for this to proceed. So I would just ask in the attached report. That's as far as I like to go there. In consultation with the residents, I'm happy for that to be added as well. That, if that's the amendment I'm proposing and the mover is preparing to accept that.
And it's para 18. So I think you're both trying to achieve the same thing. So, but having a look at it in terms of short, medium, and long term, in terms of those renewal works as per the report, and also to prepare some designs as in paragraph 18. So
Look, Lord Mayor, I understand you're trying to help, but I'm talking about the near and medium term, which I regard as being within the next 3 to 4 years, whereas the report is talking about 5 years plus. So there's a significant difference there. And I'm happy to accept your proposal to solve this by removing a direction to include funding. That's fine, I'm happy with that. But the design process I'm proposing has nothing to do with the medium, long, or the long term. So that's the difference.
I guess in the alternate motion, the point of the review was to look at it in terms of short, medium and long-term renewal work so that we actually did have that scope over the period of time. And part of that would include the design in paragraph 18 and also looking at design as per point 3. So
it is, Lord Mayor, it is a key point, and I'm sure that the mover would accept that. It's not long term that we're talking about, not medium term. We're just asking the administration to review this with that level of detail, that's all.
I'll just ask the mover. Yes? Okay. So, Councillor Martin, just so I'm clear, so after attached report, just in consultation with residents, is that correct?
Yes, that's all I'm asking.
Yep. Just checking on.
Yeah, that's perfect. Works fine.
I'm not sure you need, but please, you I think we've got there. If you'd like to speak to it.
Yes, that's fine. And the mover's seconder is happy with that? Okay, fine. All right. Look, I'm pleased we got there. This is a really important matter, and look, that specificity that is in there needs to be in there because of the circumstances. It isn't acceptable in a sophisticated city in the 21st century that conditions that are described here are accepted. And the administration makes clear that every time it rains in this northern car parking bay, we have what is described as ponding, which is a euphemism for when you park your car, you splash all the other cars around you, if not the people who are there, and when you get out of your car, you step into a puddle. We wouldn't tolerate that on East Terrace, we wouldn't tolerate that on South Terrace, and Kingston Terrace is one of the major roads that runs along the parklands and is a particularly pristine part of the parklands. And moreover, the cost, as is referenced in 18 of the administration's report, is $190,000, which is no money at all, really. Now, there is some loss of commuter parking, but I don't think that any resident would complain about the loss of commuter parking, that is, people who park there and then catch the bus into town. And moreover, I would think that our commercial operations would be just delighted to think that some people may be forced to actually pay to park in one of our car parks rather than at Kingston Terrace. But additionally, and more importantly, is that that part of the road requires the attention that is articulated in respect of the bluestone curb, and necessarily as a consequence of that, if you could see the road, it requires the resurfacing and the realignment of that road surface. And it is important because it's still not satisfactory in the 21st century in a sophisticated city like this one, as the administration says, to overcome the problems we have, which is that it's a pretty untidy bluestone curb, but particularly that when you open your door collects the bluestone curb because there's a significant dip in the road. And the administration says, well, we can get around that by moving the yellow line further towards the middle of the road. So there's a gap between where you get out of your car and step up to the curb. That is, it's a solution, but it's not a satisfactory solution in a sophisticated city like this city is. And so by asking the administration to prepare this and consulting with the local residents, we will get a much better outcome and one that is satisfactory. Lord Mayor, if I may have 1 second longer, and it is simply to thank the administration for acknowledging that the intersection at Jerningham and Kingston Terrace is not DDA compliant. That has been confidential until this meeting. I'm grateful it's out there and everyone understands it's being addressed.
Thank you. Councillor Moran, did you wish to speak? I know you had your hand up to second, but did you wish to speak to it? No. No? Okay. Members? Any other speakers? If not, I'll go back to the mover to sum up. Councillor Couros.
I'd like to thank Councillor Martin for support. I didn't think I had any support with this one, Lord Mayor. There was this came through committee and no one spoke to it, and it's a motion that I brought through I think a couple of years ago to reviewing Kingston Terrace, and I didn't think it would be well received by councillors, so I'm hoping that by what Councillor Martin has said today in Chamber, that other councillors can see this is really important for the residents of Kingston Terrace. It's been an ongoing issue for many, many, many years. It hasn't been dealt with at all, and we're getting close to having some sort of solution. And I think I'd like to thank Councillor Martin again, and I think it would be great if everyone can get on board.
Thank you. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Sorry, Councillor Hyde, I didn't see you vote in favour. Thank you. Could I have that recorded as unanimous? Thank you. Members, that takes us to 10.2, Palmer Place on-street parking. Councillor Martin.
Yes, I'd like to move an alternative motion, Lord Mayor. 1 and 2 as they are, and 3 requests a stakeholder consultation over the whole of Palmer Place, requests a stakeholder consultation over the whole of Palmer Place. On extending the 2-hour zone throughout to be provided by council, provided to council by August 2022. Request a stakeholder consultation over the whole of Palmer Place on extending the 2-hour zone throughout, and I mean by that for the sake of everyone's understanding throughout Palmer Place, to be provided to Council by August
Just make that large enough for everybody to read it.
2022.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Moran as your seconder. Councillor Martin, would you just like to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I don't have any problem with the recommendation that came to us in respect of 1 and 2. The trial has shown improved amenity for business and residents where a previous 3-hour limit was parked out, and in the view of locals, abused by commuters who say, according to the locals, they say they try and get away with longer hours of parking and, in fact, shuffling cars around the square and that sort of thing. Now, according to the administration, there has been, as a result of the trial, no negative impact on the surrounding streets on places like Lakeman and Pennington. And so we have this little parking policy that's working well for an area that would be best described as about 100 and 150 metres, somewhere between that. And on the rest of Palmer Place, as Councillor Moran and I know, as a consequence of repeated emails from a group of people who I believe number something in the order of about 20, they think we should have gone further. And let me read you what one of them has said to us in one of the emails. The relevant benchmark for the test, that is the one that we did that resulted in the 150 metre parking change, is to compare parking behaviour in the 2-hour limit area with parking behaviour in the 3-hour limit area. That is the rest. No cars on this part of Palmer Street and the other side full. It is a total joke. Now, putting the pejorative language to one side, Lord Mayor, it is true, the real comparison that we as a council, they suggest, should be making is that if 2 hours brings better amenity into a small area, why not bring it to the bigger area? A larger area would also benefit. And these residents want the chance, based on the results of the administration's small trial area, which was not subject to any consultation, that is before we did that small trial area, they want the chance to be asked what they think about extending it throughout. It's a fairly democratic request that they have. They're saying, look, you've done this, it's worked well, can we please be asked what we think about extending that throughout the rest of Palmer Place? And so I ask members to support this. It is nothing more than asking residents, would you like to see this extended throughout Palmer Place in those areas where we currently have a 3-hour zone? There is nothing more to it than that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Moran, did you wish to speak? Members? Councillor Couros?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I again like to thank Councillor Martin for bringing this forward. I think he's absolutely right. I've spoken to most of the residents there, met some of them on site on Palmer Place. I've received many emails, and the 2-hour trial has been very effective. They've communicated that with me, so I would like to tell let my all elected members know that this is a good way forward. We can consult with the all of Palmer Place and see if we can extend that and see if they can work efficiently as it has for the trial that we had done. So I encourage members to support this.
Thank you, Councillor. Members, any other speakers? Councillor Martin, to sum up?
Sum it up, Lord Chair.
Thank you. Members to the vote, those in favour? Those against? Again, that is carried. Could I have that recorded as unanimous? I'd like to welcome 2 former Deputy Lord Mayors who are in the chamber tonight. Nice to see you both. Hope you enjoy the proceedings. That takes us to 10.5, which is the Adelaide Economic Development Agency Charter and Advisory Committee Terms of Reference Review. And I'll look for a mover. Councillor Couros.
Sorry, we do the charter?
Yes.
So sorry, Lord Mayor, I'm moving that, but I have an alternate motion.
We'll just put it up on the screen. So we'll just allow members a moment to read it. If you could just scroll down a little bit, Judy. No, sorry, up, so that the red is there, so that could be read. Down a little bit. Thank you.
Can I see the bit above?
Yeah, the bit above is actually as per your...
Recommendation.
Yep. Subject to a few amendments. Okay, Councillor Couros, I'll look for a seconder. Did you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Knoll, and I also saw Councillor Mackey's hand. Would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The amendments are quite small, just amending as follows: 4.4.1, asking the Lord Mayor to be a board member, but also for the Lord Mayor to nominate an elected member. Further to that, I've concluded that there'll be, leave it at 3 council members to be on the selection panel rather than 2. And then after that, I added another C on suggesting that the selection panel recommend to the council for endorsement of all appointments to the board and selection of chairperson to be approved by council, and all the other references from the executive director to revert back to managing director.
Thank you. Councillor Knoll, did you wish to speak to that?
You know, I agree also. I mean, this body is an entity from us, and we do need to keep the oversight, and also as councillors, because we are ultimately responsible to our ratepayers and stakeholders, and it's important that we still maintain a good input into the process about choosing that. And what I think of, the changes which have, in the main are just nice streamlining, etc. I think we also need to consider, and I'd like to ask for an undertaking from the CEO, and I hope I get this worded correctly, and that is that it's important that AIDA works positively and is held accountable as well, and that is that we're able to the outcomes, and in the strategic plan and in the budget, the yearly budgeting, is that that we have feedback on the KPIs and the actions and the activities, so that we are holding, that we have measures by which we can see how we are performing. And I think because it is important, particularly in those two areas, we do contribute levies and monies towards marketing and supporting of those areas as well. But otherwise, I support this.
Thank you, Councillor Mackey. I had your hand.
Thank you, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm supportive of the variation that Councillor Couros has brought forward, and had you not done so, I had every intention of doing likewise. I'm wondering also if you might be willing to consider a variation in respect of 4.4.10 of the Charter. And I understand this is a carryover, it's been adopted from the Acknowledgement Charter, but if it reads as if any vacancy occurs in the membership of the board during a term, the council CEO can appoint a board member for the remainder of the term at their discretion. And my preference would be, and I seek the indulgence of the chamber, that to protect any chief executive of the potential of being accused of patronage or favourites, that a backfill in the event of a resignation should come to the panel. So therefore the change that you put forward in respect of 4.4.1.3 and I assume also B, Councillor Couros, where it also talks about 2 two council members. That you're also looking for that to be three.
So, Councillor Mackie, I'll just capture that. So we've got 4.4.10. So being amended to at the moment it reads the CEO's council to appoint. So you want to change that to the council appoint. So the amendment is instead of the council CEO can appoint, it will be the council can appoint.
Correct.
Is that correct? So is that a good capture?
Would you excuse me just to have a very quick side conversation?
Sorry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I believe the mover is comfortable to accommodate that variation, and I defer to the administration for the most efficient choice of words in relation to that variation.
Thank you. We were just clarifying the CEO that has come before, and she's chosen not to use that mechanism, rather coming back through the chamber. It was there in case of caretaker or we aren't able to appoint her for a period of time. But the CEO is comfortable with that being there. So, to the mover and the seconder, Councillor Couros, you happy to accept that variation?
And the other option.
4.4.10.
Yes.
That's correct. And your seconder, Councillor Knoll, are you happy to include that variation? Okay, members, are there any other speakers? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I'll support the amendments when they come to a vote, but I'm not sure that I will support the motion in its entirety. I am a little disappointed in reading the Charter that it makes no reference whatever to the context of this being a body which manages probably our most important activity, which is Rundle Mall. And in fact, there is a significant passage of this document that's devoted to describing the qualities of the members of the board who will be part of AEDA. And in nowhere is there any mention of experience in retail. And yet it comes hot on the heels of a report in October last year from KPMG, which lamented that no member of the board of AEDA had extensive or contemporary retail experience. It's just not mentioned anywhere in here that that's a requirement, and yet I would have thought that would be a significant focus for the Charter of AEDA. And in fact, much of what was discussed in the KPMG report, which I think is important to AEDA, 21 findings, about 11 recommendations, aren't reflected in here. And in fact, I don't think I can see the words Rundle Mall anywhere in this document. There's nothing that mentions Rundle Mall. And I think they should have been there. It is an essential priority for this organisation and for AEDA to see that Rundle Mall functions effectively. And that includes the way in which its monies are expended. And I know that there was an extensive report in Daily this week observing that of the revenues collected for Rundle Mall, about $4.3 million a year, 50% of that now goes on administration, which is a separate matter, but nevertheless one which maybe could have been addressed. So look, I will support these. They're sensible amendments for the administration of AEDA, but more broadly, I'm not sure that I support the charter that's provided.
Members, I was just taking advice from governance. Obviously, I am on the board of AIDA. I'm not voting on this, therefore I don't have a conflict, but it's a perceived conflict of interest when we actually are talking about AIDA. I am actually going to ask the CEO, in terms of just a response to some of the things within the Charter, if Ian wants to clarify that through the CEO.
Thank you, through the Chair. I'll ask Mr Hill, Managing Director of AIDA, just to clarify some corrections for the Chamber, and I would remind Council members that it was the board of AIDA that did commission an internal audit from our internal auditors, KPMG, to review the efficiency and effectiveness of the Rundle Mall levy. I'm really proud that as an organisation we do pieces of work like this where we do ask our internal auditors to review so that we can improve. So I'll just remind council members that culturally it's really important for an organisation to be able to feel confident that it can still draw attention to our internal auditors on occasion when we would like things to reviewed, and perhaps at times I understand that politics does play out, but I would encourage the organisation to continue to take that approach. And in the meantime I'll ask Mr Hill just to make some further clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Back through the Lord Mayor. Just a couple of points of clarification for the Chamber. Under 2.4, the objects and purposes of AIDA, there's a specific mention under 2.43. So to position the Rundle Mall as the state's premier retail and commercial shopping precinct in order to sustain retail business and economic viability. So there is a very specific reference to the Rundle Mall. Out of those 2.4, there are 4 objectives, and one of those is specific to the Rundle Mall. I'd just also advise the levy paying amount is 3.8 million from levy payers to the contribution from them. And I think as the chair of AIDA informed the committee the other day that we originally did have a retail expert on the board when the board was originally appointed, and that person then resigned from the board. And I think that's acknowledged that we now have a board vacancy. We also have an advisory committee that is meeting for the first time this week and has at least 4 retail experts on that committee. And I know when the board, using a skills matrix, goes back out to fill that vacancy role, we'll take the KPMG report recommendations into consideration.
Lord Mayor, can I apologise? I missed that line there where Rundle Mall is mentioned.
Certainly, it's in the main 4 objectives of the organisation.
Yeah, no, it's in 2.4.
Yep.
You'll forgive me, it's a lengthy document, and just those.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And can I also just make clear, Lord Mayor, I was talking about the Charter not mentioning retail experience, not the actual qualifications of people on the advisory committee or people who have been appointed. My comments related to the Charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Members, are there any other speakers? If not, I'll go to Councillor Councillor Knoll.
Yeah, I'd like to thank...
Sorry, Councillor, I've got you as having spoken.
On this one?
I had you as having spoken.
Oh, sorry, before...
Sorry, Councillor Couros, to sum up.
I did have a question.
Sorry, apologies, Councillor Hyde. You're going to have to do this, I can't see it.
It's not terribly important, but something Councillor Martin said just prompted a question in my mind regarding administrative costs for the component of AIDA that services Rundle Mall. Yes, I acknowledge what was published online, but how does that compare to what the RMA was previously?
We can take that later. This is, at the moment, we're talking about the Charter as opposed to something that was in the paper during the week.
Well, it may materially affect my vote, actually, to be honest, Lord Mayor, because if in fact there are more or higher costs spent on human resources now than there was before, then I wouldn't be supportive of such changes, because it means AIDA fundamentally is not living up to its purpose. So, but I'm quite confident in the answer.
I can take that as a question without notice later. That doesn't actually talk to the motion that's before us. unless you want. It's not relevant to what's before us.
The fundamental operation of the entire Section 42 subsidiary?
Well, that is, we are doing amendments to the Charter as opposed to the entire operation of the 42 subsidiary.
The Charter,
subsidiary.
which of course, Lord Mayor, as you know, there were substantial amendments mooted for how this Charter actually handles the Rundle North precinct. So if I'm not satisfied that it's not handling said precinct adequately, which is what I'm trying to deduce with my question, respectfully, Lord Mayor, then I can't support it. So. If they don't have the answer, they don't have the answer. It is what it is.
Vote against.
Do you want to answer that very, very quickly with a yes or a no, perhaps?
Thank you, through the Lord Mayor. I'm trying to remember back to the question. It was around the overall resourcing
do we spend
levy, and
50% of 4.3
it's less.
million?
It's less. So
It's much less.
I'm confident that over the last year that has reduced, and I know the headcount within the Rundle management team has reduced by at least 2 FTE.
Seeing none in case. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Well, just a quick question for the CEO, who clearly has these figures at her fingertips. So Indali is wrong in reporting that there has been an increase in the cost.
So, I'm sorry. Can we just talk to the Charter? We can actually take those as questions on notice later. Thank you. I had Deputy Lord Mayor's hand up.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Just briefly, I do want to remind members that we are talking about the Charter, which talks to the powers and the functions of the entity. And I guess some of the concerns that have been raised in tonight's discussion, members might want to think about how they can address those gaps when it comes to setting the strategic plan or the annual business plans when the time comes.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Members, if not, back to Councillor Couros to sum up.
Only just to say that when we have amendments to any charters or any documents, is it possible we can have track changes included in the documentation? Okay.
It was in the report as a link, apparently.
The track changes as well?
I believe so.
Thank you.
That's what I'm being advised.
So I remember, yes, it's in there as one of the links showing the track changes.
I'm meaning like on the actual document itself, rather than as a separate document.
Yeah.
It's just easier to
See what's been changed.
Sorry.
Did you want to speak to them?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Members, that takes us to 10.6, Adelaide event guidelines. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Seconded. Councillor Moran, you seconding? Deputy Lord Mayor, did you wish to speak?
Thank you.
Councillor Moran? Members? If not, back to the mover to sum up.
Summed up.
Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. We have 10.7. Members, which is the Cultural Festivals Action Plan. Based on the decision of committee, I'd like to ask a member to defer this item to allow a little more time to ensure the clarity between the operations of AIDA and the City of Adelaide culture team. As was spoken to us at committee, the CEO and the executive are working on this at present, and I'd just like to get a little bit more time so that members are clear to the outcomes when endorsing this plan. Deputy Lord Mayor?
Happy to move.
Happy to move a deferral. Seconded, Councillor Couros. Members, would anybody like to speak to that, or just defer until the work comes in from the CEO?
Oh no, just to thank the CEO for deferring it. That's a wise step. I certainly was a bit confused, and I'd like the clarity. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. And we'll defer to April. Is everybody happy to defer to April, Deputy Lord Mayor?
Yes, sure.
Councillor Couros? Okay. Deputy Lord Mayor, to sum up? Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you. 10.8, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I do have an alternative motion. It's essentially a slight change in point 1, and that's just to provide clarification, and I do seek a seconder.
Members, I'll look for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Couros. Deputy Lord Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Councillor Couros? Members?
Just a quick question, Lord Mayor. I haven't seen this before. The program contact, that is the originator for this request, is the Managing Director of AIDA, not anyone from Finance or the Chief Operating Officer. Does that mean this is being administered by AIDA
That
or
is
being
correct.
administered by Council?
No, this is the Event Recovery Fund is being administered by AIDA.
Oh, okay. So it's not. This has nothing to do with Council.
Well, it absolutely has to do with Council. So, and we're approving an increase to the maximum amount. At the moment, the quick response grants is 10,000.
Yep.
Because of the situation that we're in at the moment, there's been a request through AIDA that we extend that to a maximum of 20,000, so that we can respond within the context of COVID. There's a lot of events that are requiring additional resources so that they can be carried out. And there's a limited amount of funds, and once that's exhausted, then so will that amount.
And may I ask, because I didn't understand that, so if an event lodges an application for a request for emergency funding, they don't come to the City of Adelaide, they go to AIDA through the Managing Director, and it's approved on delegation by the Managing Director or by the Board of AIDA?
It's approved by the Board of AIDA through the Managing Director. So there's a recommendation, so it comes back to the Board. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
And I know that that's going out through our e-news as to who's being funded. Members, any other comments, questions, speakers? If not, back to the Deputy Lord Mayor to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Martin, you voting?
Yes, I support that.
Thank you. That is carried. Members, that takes us to 10.9. Councillor Knoll.
I'd like to move the motion and second that.
Okay. Look for a second. Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Yes, Councillor Knoll.
Thank you. Look, I'd like to thank the administration for doing this piece of work, and also for I think it's Councillor Hyde for asking the question. When I looked through this and thinking about our council as it sits now, and our attitude towards sales of assets and how we use those funds and how we maintain our asset values and income streams, and it's one of my big points is that I want to make sure that we enable the next councils to have different income streams. So when I look at that, we sold $110 million worth of assets over a 15-year period, and and this was just the normal accounting. There's nothing about administration and how they handle the funds. But here we had these assets, these funds that we could have expended for creating new income streams, creating more valuable income for the city, that would have enabled it to have a continuing, hopefully in most cases, an increasing asset, while still expending the income from those assets on the sorts of work we want. And we looked at, if we look just generally at the commentary of the larger pieces that we spent money on, which was Victoria Square, and we're not talking about 88 O'Connell because that those funds do come back. But we can talk about that. And this goes back to our asset management plan, is that here are all these assets within our city, and many of them are about amenity, and if we talk about Rundle Mall and we talk about Gawler Place, those things are still part of an infrastructure we need to maintain. But that can't come out of a special, or shouldn't come out of a special motion saying we want to fix Gawler Place up. It should be a renewal process in our long-term plan. And that is funded by our assets that these commercial assets or commercial funds that we've invested in ways that will deliver us good returns that can fund that. And I think the future fund in that is now a real way that we are starting to secure those funds and starting to look at commercial ways to achieve what we want as a city, and that is that we don't want rates to go up as much, because again it's about an efficient and cheap city to live in, but also that we have ways of income that will enhance the city and broaden our base, which is far more sustainable, and it will enable us to deliver all these things. But also with the way we're now managing the assets, it'll be part of a renewal process. Rather than it being, we want to fix this up and a special project, it'll be more so a question of we would like to change that asset somewhat and increase its amenity or whatever. And I think, so if we're using this as a guide for what we're doing now, we should remind ourselves that the more we enable our administration to find ways of finding new incomes, using the underperforming assets, by changing that and finding other ways to bring in the income, I think then our council will be much more in a much better position.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak? Members? Councillor Martin?
Oh, just briefly, Lord Mayor. Look, it's funny how we all read the same piece of paper and we come away with different conclusions. I read that piece of paper and noted that the administration was responding to a question from Councillor Hyde, or a motion that was designed to demonstrate that the current council's financial problems were due to the irresponsibilities of former councillors by spending funds that they'd received as the sale of assets, including the Grenfell Street car park and the like, instead of investing it in future projects. And the administration makes clear that the sale of those assets certainly went to the budget, certainly offset debt at the time, but it constructed for the City of Adelaide a new and spectacular Rundle Mall, which at the time, I do remember the council at the time talking about how that effort would not only drive visitations to the city, it would increase property values and drive up rates. We also constructed Gawler Place, a very controversial measure, but one which I remember Councillor Milani, who sits in the audience tonight, said would increase dramatically the value of properties in Gawler Place and increase rate revenue, which of course it did. It also, this sale of assets, produced for us Victoria Square, the lasting monument to the foresight of Councillor Abiad, who also sits in the gallery tonight. These are initiatives of former councillors that have gone to the asset base of the city, but not only the asset base, to the beauty and the amenity of the city. Lord Mayor, I think that former councils have done a wonderful job in ensuring that this city has the best possible infrastructure. But the little golden thing that comes out of all of this is that the administration observes that had we not sold those assets and invested them in the construction of these substantial developments within the city, we would have today a debt of $173 million. $173 million debt on top of everything else. So, Lord Mayor, I say tonight to Councillor Abiad, Councillor Milani and all of the previous councils, well done, a fantastic job, a great city that we've invested in and a lot of debt we've avoided.
Councillor Hyde and then Councillor Couros.
Where did that come from?
I've done the unthinkable, Lord Mayor. I've extracted a compliment for former councillors Milani and Abiad from Councillor Martin. Look, Lord Mayor, this report confirms what many of us suspected in the first place, which is completely unstrategic asset sales have funded infrastructure projects, but also operating deficits at the City of Adelaide. The projects that Councillor Martin has highlighted only account for roughly $45 million worth of infrastructure expenditure. There are $108 million worth of asset sales, plus, I think, detailed in this report. So what's happened to the other tens of millions? Well, if you dig back through, as I have, you'll see that it offset historic operating deficits, and those operating deficits existed because the council, in my view, was running inefficiently, it was running a bit corporate heavy, and that's something that this council has, of course, fixed. But when reading the report, Lord Mayor, it's pretty clear that, of course, you would be in debt if you didn't sell things to fund infrastructure improvements, and you still build those infrastructure improvements. That's as clear as day. That's a bit of a superfluous statement. But again, it confirms what some of us had thought had been a quite unusual business practice, which is selling income-generating assets to invest in infrastructure, which not only does not generate an income, but actually then from there takes operating expense and maintenance for the council. That's the reality. I'm not saying that they weren't good projects, and I'm not saying that those that advocated for those projects weren't making the right decision in the best interest of the city. What I am saying is that if you want to shape your city, improve it, you don't just look at the amenity and the feel and the infrastructure. You also need to make sure the guts of the organisation are structured in a way that caters for that, and that the organisation itself is efficient in what it does. And that, of course, a couple of good councillors can advocate for a couple of good projects, but in order to improve your city, to enable your CEO and your administration to improve themselves and their operation, you need a majority of councillors willing to make those reforms and willing to make that happen. This report caps off a whole heap of work undertaken by this council in pursuit of those efficiencies, in pursuit of those reforms, and I think it's clear that it's paying dividends. The reason for this report was to firmly highlight to councillors why they need to look at the bigger picture when they're making decisions about asset sales, and I'm very pleased that this report does that.
Thank you. Councillor Couros, do you wish to speak?
I need to say that exactly as Councillor Hyde said, it's important that we look at the past, and it's important to look and review how we're going to look at things in the future. So having this report gives us that snapshot, and I commend the report. I also just like to add that I never ever thought I would ever hear Councillor Martin praise Councillor
Thank you, Councillor Couros.
And an applause for Councillor Moran. Very, very, very interesting.
You didn't say anything. Members, is that a question, Councillor Martin?
Yes. Will the Lord Mayor allow me to apologise for not thanking Councillor Hyde as well for single-handedly saving the city?
Look, we can all just sing Kumbaya a little bit later. Members, any other speakers to this? If not, I'll go to Councillor Noel to sum up.
Thank you to all of the various comments. And we can thank our previous councils, etc., for what they're doing. But what we are doing now is resetting, as previous councils have done by, with the Wingfield dump and all those sort of decisions, creating other forms of income. It's just we can't keep doing this and expect our city to be at the level at which we need it to be that attractive, that amazing place for the rest of Greater Adelaide to come to and enjoy. And all we're doing now in revisiting this is enabling our administration and also the discipline within our council, because we're the ones who are asking all sorts of public infrastructure, and it's got to come from somewhere. So I think this is the whole point, is that we're now putting in a process where we can do that, where we have a discourse around other ways of looking after our city and income streams that are future orientated, rather than where we are now reliant on certain car parks and things like that. And this is the critical part, and it's about the onus is on us as councillors and the next generations, that they remember that that's the bit that drives the rest, and sometimes you need a bit of patience to achieve your community goals, because we need a council. Our asset base should be increasing in the value and those assets that are income generating, not just assets, and most of them being just community ones.
Thank you, Councillor. Members to the vote, those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Members, that takes us to 10.11, the 2021-2022 Quarter 2 Finance Report. I will look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Couros. And a seconder. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Couros, did you wish to speak to it? Press over your right. Councillor, Deputy Lord Mayor. Members? If not, back to the move to sum up. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? We pulled it out to vote against it.
Correct.
Thank
Yes,
you.
division.
Certainly.
Council members, the division has been called on the motion. All those in favour of the motion, please stand and remain standing until all names have been called. Councillor Mackie, Councillor Couros, Councillor Kira, Councillor Ho, Councillor Snape, Councillor Hyde, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Donovan, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, members. That takes us to 10.14, which is boards and committee appointments. We'll take each of these separately. So point 1 is appointing a councillor to the Adelaide Central Market Authority Board for the remainder of the 2018-22 term. And I'll look for nominations. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Can I nominate Councillor Couros, please?
Councillor Couros, do you accept the nomination? Thank you. Councillor Hyde, I saw your hand next. Councillor Moran.
I nominate Councillor Greg Mackey.
Councillor Mackie, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Members, are there any other nominations? Councillor Martin.
Just a question, if I may, Lord Mayor. Has the board of the Central Market Authority or any member of the board expressed a preference for anyone for this role?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge?
No.
Thank you.
Members, we have two members nominated for the position, therefore we'll go to the ballot. Please mark an X next to the name of the council member you wish to take a position. Councillor Moran, did you have a question?
Yes, look, I can now see the mistake we made. These are now merit-based appointments, and with that comes the need to talk about the merit of the candidate. Now, we've missed that by just block voting it, have we?
No, it's always been a procedural before we actually go to the appointments.
Yeah, I know that, but when is the time that we can talk about the candidates? During the procedural motion. That's when we can do that.
Sorry, Councillor Moran. You'll be able to obviously talk to the motion to appoint once the ballot's been done. So the procedural is just that we will appoint someone. That's it, not anything else.
So when do we say, as it's been introduced, merit-based, which is, insulting the way it goes, but when do we get to discuss the merits of the candidates? Have they submitted a CV or? I mean, clearly the difference in merit between these two candidates is astronomical.
Councillor, there's no requirement for a discussion of the merits.
No, there's no requirement, but we have before. We have discussed the merits. I know I couldn't help overhearing my merits being discussed on the Dog and Cat Management Board.
I'm sorry, I'm looking to governments for an answer on that.
Point of clarification, Lord Mayor, if I may. If there is a change to procedure such that merits are discussed on the evening, where on prior occasions, and it was the reasonable assumption by members that merits would not be discussed, that would put some members potentially in a prejudiced situation. I would suggest that it'd be a mistake to change procedure at this juncture to something that wasn't canvassed before the meeting.
I'm not quite sure when we asked Mr. Kira for his rather scatty opinion, but is there a chance for us to discuss the merits
That is what I'm trying to get advice from governments. It's certainly not during a procedural. We are now doing the nominations. So
first of all, we've got the two nominations, so we need the ballot, and then once that's happened, there's the motion to appoint the successful.
Has the vote's already happened there?
No, that's just the ballot, the motion to appoint, and at that point you can debate the motion.
Oh, I don't
So-
understand.
Well, the motion is actually, that's not correct. That motion is only to confirm the outcome of the ballot. It's not to discuss.
Yeah,
So
we can't suddenly say that Mary, who will win this ballot...
Point of order, Lord Mayor. This is
sorry, Point of order.
This has entered a
You're
disruption
interrupting,
tactic.
Councillor Kira.
I don't know.
Sorry,
Point of
Councillor
order.
Kira, you're interrupting. Councillor Moran, while we're calling for nominations, those that are nominating can say why they're nominating. That's the only thing we have ever done.
Oh, okay. So that's all right. That's all I'm asking.
But that's the only thing that we've ever done.
When it wasn't merit-based, there was no...
And you only speak to the person that you nominate. That's it.
Well, can the person that's been nominated speak?
No, that's not procedure. Generally, we haven't done that.
Oh, so if you nominate somebody, you can speak on that?
Yeah. Oh. So we are currently going to the vote, members. So if you've made your vote...
Well, can I speak on my nomination then? You just said. It's a waste of time, Mark.
Well, we've already gone to the vote. So, to the ballot. We've already gone to the ballot.
So my ballot. She hasn't collected it.
Okay, members, I'm going to move on and I'm going to collect the ballots that you have.
It will be such a surprise.
My preference would be not to change the practice at the end of the council term. I think everybody's quite comfortable with the way that we have actually gone to nominations before.
No, we're not comfortable. None of us that are on Team Adelaide have got anything. I'm very uncomfortable. I would like to get something. Jesse?
The successful nominee is Councillor Couros. I will now look for a motion to confirm the outcome of the ballot. Because this is a remunerated position, Councillor Couros, I will need you to leave the room. Thank you. Councillor Hyde, are you moving the motion? Thank you. The motion to confirm Councillor Couros. I need a seconder. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak? No. So I need to confirm the outcome of the ballot. Councillor Moran.
I'd like to speak. Now, as I said before, if this has gone to a merit base, let's just have a look at what we just did then. Councillor Mackie chaired the Central Market Authority for many years. I was on his board too. We succeeded in putting in some massive improvements, air conditioning, the lift.
Councillor Moran, I am going to interrupt you because you're not speaking to the motion, because the motion is to confirm the outcome of the ballot.
Well, I don't want to confirm the outcome of the ballot because I think
I'm sorry,
that
but that is actually, we're speaking to a motion before you, which is to confirm. Councillor Moran, we are speaking to the outcome of the ballot.
Okay, I am speaking. I think it's a terrible outcome.
No, it's just a motion to confirm the outcome of the ballot.
Well, I don't want to confirm the outcome of the ballot.
Then you choose not to vote.
You told me that was when I could speak. You've given me permission.
No, that's
I don't
actually
understand
not
why
what I
a
did.
North Ward councillor who has no mandate, no business to be interfering in other
Councillor
wards,
Moran.
can be a Central Ward councillor. And I believe that the board did give a clear preference for who they wanted. So I was surprised to hear you say that. So I think this process is really deficient. If we're going to merit-based, then we must discuss the merit. The difference in merit between who has been voted for only because they're a member of the dominant faction and the merit of this candidate is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It shows that no matter what an independent puts up, they will never get a position on this council, ever. And
the motion is to confirm the outcome of the ballot. Thank you. I've given you a lot of leeway to speak to that. Members, we are going to the vote. Those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hyde. We are speaking to the motion to confirm the outcome of the ballot.
To the motion, and it was an excellent outcome of the ballot because Councillor Couros is currently a small businesswoman. She's one who, and I say this as the previous council representative on the board, worked closely with me in allaying the traders' concerns regarding the reforms of the market. During that time, she built many strong relationships, and they know, those traders know, that they can rely on her.
Because
Similarly, the administration knows they can rely on her. And so I do think it's a highly meritorious appointment, and I would just, for clarity's sake, Lord Mayor, I believe Councillor Moran is getting hung up on the term merit, and that was, of course, used in a previous ballot to highlight the merits of one candidate over another.
Thank you, Councillor. We're talking to the motion to confirm the outcome of the ballot. Thank you.
She's taken it.
Thank you. I've allowed you both. I've allowed you both to speak.
Councillor Couros will be an excellent representative for this council chamber, and moreover brings the financial acumen and business acumen to the board.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. That's enough. Thank you. When we nominate someone for a position, when we get to the next three, you can speak to the person you're nominating, and that's it. We are not speaking when we are going to the motion to confirm the outcome of a ballot. All right? So if we're going to keep changing the procedure, I've just changed it, and as presiding member, that is what we're going to do. So we have a motion to confirm. Those in favour? That is against?
Division.
That is carried.
Council members, the division has been called on the motion. All those in favour of the motion, please stand and remain standing till all names have been called. Councillor Kira, Councillor Ho, Councillor Hyde, Councillor Knoll, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, members. That takes us to 10.14.2, which is appointing a councillor to the City of Adelaide Audit and Risk Committee for the remainder of the 2018-22 term. So, Deputy Lord Mayor.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Knoll.
Councillor Knoll?
Yes.
Do you accept the nomination? Are there any other nominations? Councillor Snape?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Martin.
Councillor Martin, do you accept the nomination?
No, Lord Mayor, I have no faith in the work of our audit committee.
Thank you. That's a big statement.
Well, Lord Mayor,
members, we have... No, please sit down. We have one nomination. Are there any other further nominations for Audit and Risk Committee? Thank you. If not, it's Councillor Knoll. I would need a motion to confirm Councillor Knoll. Councillor Hyde? And a seconder, Councillor Couros. Members, did you wish to speak? No. Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Members, the third appointment is for a councillor to the Capital City Committee for the remainder of 2018-2022. Councillor Mackie, I see you rising.
Apologies, I nominate Councillor Moran.
Councillor Mackie. Councillor Moran, do you accept the nomination? Councillor Martin?
I was going to speak for the nomination of Councillor Moran.
Deputy Lord Mayor?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Couros.
Councillor Couros. Members, Councillor Couros, do you accept the nomination? Members, are there any other nominations? If not, we will go to the ballot. We have two members before us for Capital City Committee, one being Councillor Moran, one being Councillor Couros.
Well, I bet $1 million
for Councillor Couros.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Couros has been successful. So members, I need a motion to confirm the outcome of the ballot. Thank you, Councillor Knoll. And a seconded Deputy Lord Mayor. The position is not remunerated, so there's no conflict of interest in the vote. Councillor Knoll, do you wish to sum up? Members to the vote, those in favour, those against, that is carried.
Council members, the division has been called on the motion. All those in favour, please stand, remain standing until all names have been called. Councillor Couros, Councillor Kira, Councillor Ho, Councillor Hyde, Councillor Knoll and Deputy Lord Mayor.
Members, we have one final one, which is an appointment of a councillor to Catatilla Parklands Authority Board for the remainder of 2018-22 term. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Can I nominate Councillor Donovan, please?
Councillor Donovan, do you accept the nomination? Thank you. Councillor Mackie.
Lord Mayor, I nominate Councillor Snape.
Councillor Mackie. Councillor Snape, you accept the nomination?
I accept.
Are there any further nominations? No? Okay, so members, we have two nominations. We've got Councillor Donovan and Councillor Snape for the position on the Parklands Authority Board.
Lord Mayor, were we going to have a break any time?
I was going to have a break around 7:30, which I was just going to do the confidential items and go to break. so. Yeah. Should be about, hopefully won't be long. No, it's 20 minutes, but this should only take us another 5 minutes. Thank you, members. Councillor Donovan is the successful member. This is a remunerated position, Councillor Donovan, so I ask you to leave the room. Members, I need a motion to confirm the outcome of the ballot. Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Moran. Just a moment, sorry. Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Moran, you happy to second that? Yep. Members, if not, back to Deputy Lord Mayor to sum up. Members to the vote, those in favour, those against.
Sorry, I was just looking at Councillor Donovan, yes.
Was that in favour or against?
In favour.
In favour, thank you. Thank you, members. Thanks, Eddie. Can I have the thing? Members, we've got 2 items to be presented for consideration in confidence, and after which we will take a short break. So I require a motion decision to order the exclusion of the public to enable the consideration in confidence. Could I have a mover and a seconder for 12.1.1, the confidential report of the Audit and Risk Committee from the 4th of February? Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Seconded, Councillor Kira. Members, Councillor Martin.
Lord Mayor, look, I'm wasting my breath, but I urge everyone to vote against this. The Audit Committee report could be public, except for those 3 reports which are confidential in relation to other parts of the operations of the organisation. The rest of it, I contend, can be heard in public and should be.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Snape.
I was elected on a platform of transparency, and as such I prefer it to be heard in public.
Thank you, Councillor Snape. Members, if not, back to Deputy Lord Mayor to sum up. Members to the vote, those in favour, those against. That is carried. Members, I also need a mover and a seconder for the motion to exclude for 12.2.1, which is the 2021-2022 Q2 Confidential Commercial Operations Report, and I look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Seconder, Councillor Kouros. Members, Councillor Martin.
Same thing, Lord Mayor. There's no reason why this needs to be heard in
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Snape.
I was elected on a platform of transparency, and as such I prefer it to be heard in public.
Thank you, Councillor. Members, any other speakers? Councillor Knoll to sum up?
No.
Members to the vote, those in favour, those against. That is carried. So, members of the public and staff, thank you for your attendance in the first part of the meeting. Those not associated with items 12.1.1 and 12.2.1, please leave the council chamber. The streaming will now cease while council considers the items on the agenda, and will reopen and streaming recommence at the conclusion of the last confidential item. Good, Australian. Thank you. That takes us to item 13 on tonight's report. Before I start, I would like to welcome our newest member of the executive, Ilya Huridis, who has started yesterday as the new director of the City Shaping. So I'm sure members you all have, if you don't know Ilya already, you will have lots to do with him over the next while. So welcome. Auspicious for your second day in council to be in a council meeting. Look forward to working with you. Members, as we know, the Omicron outbreak has had a disproportionate effect on the city and especially our city businesses, which have already faced capacity limits and restrictions for the best part of 2 years. Last week, I met with Premier Stephen Marshall and the Treasurer Rob Lucas, along with the CEO, to discuss how the state government could work with council in supporting the city's recovery. The state government has matched council's $250,000 investment in the Adelaide Unleashed voucher scheme, which will be delivered through AIDA. AIDA will issue up to 25,000 vouchers valued at $30 to support hospitality businesses and attract people to the city. Unlike previously where it was a voucher for either lunch or dinner, this can be used for breakfast, lunch or dinner and at a range of cafes, restaurants, hotels and small bars. The link to register is on the Experience Adelaide website and I encourage you to share it with any business owners you think may be interested in participating. The state government has also announced they are supporting the City of Adelaide's Reignite Adelaide 2.1 initiatives with $1 million for the City of Adelaide to deliver a citywide activation program called Adelaide Unleashed. They have also provided $250,000 for the City of Adelaide to at least double the number of grants on offer under its Street Side Activation Grant Scheme. The scheme will provide grants of up to $5,000 in value for eligible businesses to activate the area immediately outside their premises in the CBD. Free public transport to the CBD from midday Friday to midnight Sunday each week during the festival period, so that's from the 18th of February, finishing on Sunday the 20th of March. $150,000 to the City of Adelaide to expand its existing business advice and support program provided in conjunction with Business SA. This provides access to the business advice hotline and other advisory services including accounting, statutory and compliance information, tenants landlord advisory service, mental health support services, digital capability coaching and grants and tender support. State government support will make a huge difference in helping council in our efforts to support the city recoveries in the weeks ahead. Separate to that, I also met with Ian Yates and Jane Mussard from COTA, the Council of the Ageing, to discuss the Adelaide Aquatic and Wellbeing Centre and thank them for their support. On February the 3rd, I participated in the ICLI, which is the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, the Oceania Merrill Round Table, to discuss accelerating climate action in 2022 and how local governments can work with the federal government to deliver on their net zero targets by 2050. I also attended the launch of the South Australian office of the Australia-India Chamber of Commerce at Adelaide Oval on the same day. If I could have someone move that accept the report. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Members, to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Thank you. Members, item 14 on tonight's agenda are reports from council members. Members, could I have a mover? Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and a seconder, Councillor Knoll. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, if I may, I would just like to announce that at last year's Parking Industry Awards, which took place on 10th of November 2021, UPark Plus was announced the category winner for Outstanding Customer Service. This follows on from a win in the same category at the Local Government Excellence Award, again in May last year. The Parking Industry Awards are a national event recognising excellence in the industry. There were 3 finalists in the Outstanding Customer Service category, including multinational car parking operators. Many of the submissions, like UPark Plus, reflected on how the industry had adapted during COVID-19 and addressed customers' concerns by providing contactless entry, exit and payment options. The City of Adelaide submitted a joint nomination with the product developer and supplier. The Adelaide company is called ADVAM, ADVAM, with whom the project team worked closely to deliver this unique, customised and holistic product. The success of the product and the recognition of both local government and the parking industry is a great example of the value of collaboration and partnerships in business. And Lord Mayor, I'm told that the award itself will be presented in May this year at the Parking Australia's convention and exhibition, which is due to take place in Adelaide. Further to that, Lord Mayor, if I can just briefly say that I represented you at the Grove Street Business Precinct Lunar New Year public art installation launch. And as we know, this year is the year of tiger, and I guess the traits and the characteristics of the tiger are all about resilience, strength, and leadership. So I think, given the past 2 years that we've had and the challenges that the pandemic has thrown at us, it is a good reminder for us to take note of the tiger's character. So in saying that, and you'll have to excuse my pronunciation on this, I would like to say Chinin Kualo and Gong Hei Fat Choi, and I'll be happy to be corrected on that. And also one last item, Lord Mayor, and I hope this is not inappropriate, but we do have our Chief Operating Officer's birthday today, so Amanda is joining us on her birthday tonight, so I do wish her a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, and I also thank you for representing the city in my stead, Deputy Lord Mayor, while I was unable to attend. Members, are there any other comments on council reports? If not, I'll go to the move to sum up. Members to the vote, those in favour, those against, that is carried. Members, we have five questions on notice tonight. We'll take those as read. They will, of course, have the questions and the answers to those questions on the website for the public. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Martin.
Yes, a follow-up, Lord Mayor, to the administration response to 15.2. I asked the administration what it was going to do about the duplications of costs according to the KPMG report as a result of AIDA and Council having their own separate marketing and event units. And the administration replied, the City of Adelaide and AIDA have different marketing remits. Cross-promotion occurs when marketing is relevant to the various audiences. I wasn't talking about cross-promotion, and so I'm worried the administration didn't understand the question. I was referring specifically to the KPMG recommendation to utilise the broader AIDA team and centralise some marketing activities. Is it the intention of the City of Adelaide, in the context of the review that the CEO is proposing to undertake, to adopt the KPMG recommendation and hand our marketing functions, as well as our events functions, to AIDA? Is that matter under review?
CEO.
Thank you through the Chair. Apologies if we haven't read that question in full. As the KPMG audit report pointed out, there was duplication, and as we discussed last Tuesday, that is being worked through here at the City of Adelaide and in consultation with AIDA. And as I committed to last week, I will make sure that council members are kept informed of any changes that may be undertaken in the future.
Thank you, CEO.
Lord Mayor, just to follow, I was asking, is that under review?
I think the answer was that is part of the review that they're undertaking through the executive. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. And follow up, if I may, to 15.4, in answer to a direct question, following the state government request for 25% of the workforce to return on January 31st, the administration, in reply to my question, said it could not give an accurate figure because it changes day to day. If the administration can't be sure that 25% of the workforce is there, how can it be sure it's actually following the government directive which our businesses are calling out for?
CEO?
Well, the administration has said in response to my question about how many people, what is the percentage of staff that have returned to indoor work, it couldn't give me an answer. It doesn't know, it changes day to day. So in that case, how do we know we are helping our businesses by ensuring that 25% of the staff are back if the administration can't tell us how many people are back?
CEO?
Thank you, through the Lord Mayor. So just to be absolutely clear, that if all white-collar workers were in our indoor workspaces, they all meet the density requirements at any one point in time.
Which is the 1 per 4 square metres.
I get that, but does that constitute 25% of our workforce?
Yes. And we have actually sought clarity. It was very confusing when that came through, but we did seek clarity that 25% was to represent 1 per 4 square metres.
Thank you. And look, just one last question, Lord Mayor. I understand the City of Adelaide's legal team conferred with C&G and their legal team at the Environment, Resources and Development Court before and during last week's hearing, which I attended, when residents lost their bid to appeal the 88 O'Connell Street project. 2 residents had withdrawn earlier their appeal. Did the City of Adelaide or our development partner C&G pay any money or contribute any money to any party to withdraw their appeal, given that such a measure was foreshadowed in a letter to people involved in the court action by the C&G principal Jamie McClurg last year?
CEO?
Thank you, through the presiding member. I'm not aware of any financial arrangement, but Mr McCready, if you'd like to please clarify that question without notice to the Chamber, please.
Through you, Lord Mayor, just in response. Firstly, in the details that have been presented so far in regards to the outcomes of that decision, it noted that the second respondent pulled out or effectively unjoined in regards to the process. It didn't indicate why that person unjoined. Now, whether that was an arrangement between C&G and that party, we are not privy to that. That would be a confidential matter between the persons. So we're not aware of any transference of any money or even what the relationship was in regards to any outcome.
Yep. Thank you. Members? Turn my mic off. Members, are there any further questions without notice? If not, we'll go to motions on notice. We have Councillor Snape, motion on notice, blister pack recycling. Councillor Snape.
So I'll put this to the floor and seek a seconder.
Members are looking for a seconder. Councillor Moran. Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, thank you. So for me, this is, I've used this term a few times, quite a common sense motion. Maura Horton, who most know, is proprietor of Terry White Kmart in North Adelaide, and she's been providing a service for some time now to recycle blister packs. Now, sorry to bring them up front, just so people know what I'm talking about. Blister packs, quite simply, and it is Panadol, I promise, is these medication packets, which most of us have and use in everyday scenarios. They're actually incredibly difficult to recycle. We believe there's only 3 locations, or was only 3 locations, including Morag's store, where we can recycle these within metropolitan Adelaide. I know there are other locations for difficult to recycle products, but in regards to blister packs, only 3 locations, now technically 2. So Morag has been doing this out of her own pocket. She's a very much a community-minded individual, a great spirit in that regard, and she's very passionate about recycling. But as word got out that she provided this service, more and more people came to do the right thing, to recycle blister packs, and it does, there is a cost involved, and she was bearing that cost on her own. So quite simply, my motion is for council to provide a couple of locations. I have named a couple of locations here, the Customer Centre and North Adelaide Community Centre, but I'm happy for administration to kind of look at other options, perhaps just a couple more community centres instead of the Customer Centre might be more appropriate. But I'd also like to suggest that, as part 2, that we thank Morag formally for her contribution to the community and to the recycling effort, which is part of our kind of carbon neutral, greener future that we hope for. So I commend this to the floor, and I certainly look for support. Thank the Chamber for the time.
Thank you. Councillor Moran, did you wish to speak? Thank you. Councillor Mackie.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'm through you. I'm wondering if the mover and seconder would be willing to consider a slight variation to the motion. Councillor Snape, you just mentioned about the perhaps suitability or lack thereof of the customer centre. So the variation I'd like to ask you to consider is that clause 1 read, the City of Adelaide provides a medication blister pack recycling drop-off point at our minor works building, comma, box factory and the North Adelaide Community Centre.
And Councillor Couros, did you just put your hand up to...
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. So Councillor, are you doing that as an amendment? Or...
Lord Mayor, if the mover and seconder are happy to accept it as a variation, I'm perfectly happy with that. Otherwise, I'll move an amendment.
Councillor Smith, are you happy to accept that? Councillor Moran, you happy to accept that?
Just asking whether the suggestion can then go and say, and any other places that are found suitable. I don't want to rule anything out.
Okay, so at the moment though, this is requiring minor works, box factory, customer centre and North Adelaide?
No, not the customer. Sorry, Lord Mayor, I was removing customer centre.
Okay, thank you. I'm just checking. So...
Yes, happy to support that amendment. Variation, sorry.
Okay, so I'll just deal with it one at a time. So that's a variation by Councillor Mackie, which is accepted, and Councillor Moran has accepted. Now, Councillor Moran, did you also want to make a change to that?
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mackie, did you wish to speak to that at all? No? Councillor Couros.
I don't know how this would work now. I need your guidance, Lord Mayor, but I had an amendment as well. But mine was asking for a report to come back to council. So request administration prepare a report for council's consideration. Council at the April 2020 meeting, which investigates the application of this proposed cycle drop-off at customer centre and the community centres. The reason why I thought the report would be best is because we can probably work on expanding this. I didn't want to completely change the motion because Morag does a really great job in ensuring that waste is recycled properly. We share the same commercial premises, and she works really hard with big job there in ensuring that the tenants do put the correct waste in the correct recycle bin. But I'm just foreshadowing that I think that we could expand on this a lot more and not let it be about just blister packs. It could be also recycling mobile phones. We could be talking about...
doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't.
It's just foreshadowing a
motion, because I don't want to take away from what Morag what she wanted to achieve through.
Okay, so just so that I'm very clear, so your amendment is that we're requesting a report to come back by April, which looks at the blister pack recycling drop-off points at our customer centre and the community centres, and also formally recognises Morag.
Yeah.
But that's what that says.
No, the first one is, so the original one is saying that we do provide the drop-off points. The second one is asking for a report so that we can investigate where that might best be placed.
Because we could also be working with other pharmacies, we could have drop-offs there. We could expand on this a lot further than it just being about blister packs.
Okay, so just so that we're clear, so if that's an amendment, then I'll look for a seconder for the amendment. Okay, all right. So I was just checking to see, Councillor Smoke, whether we can sort of incorporate it, but there's slightly different ones putting the drop-off points in and one's looking for an investigation. So slightly different, but in terms of point one. So I had a seconder. Councillor Cross, is there anything else you want to add to that in terms of why you are requesting a report?
Yes, I spoke to Marag about this, and she understands that it could be looked at a bigger picture. It can fall within our strategic plan as well, in which we can look at other recycling items. But like I said, I didn't want to take away what she's requested here, because I think she's got a very valid point. There are probably a lot of other pharmacies that are facing the same issue, and we can look at that, and we can look at working with other pharmacies to provide drop-off points citywide. And maybe we can work, rather than it being just one operation in...
If I can just say though, what you've asked for is investigating the drop-off points being our customer centre and the community centres. It doesn't actually say anywhere else.
Can I add to that? Take out customer centre and add in help with some wording.
At city businesses?
And city businesses.
Other appropriate locations, like let them...
We can collaborate and work with them, because if they're going to the pharmacy, they more than likely would want to drop it off there.
Okay, I think I'm with you. So you're asking for us to investigate, still going with the blister pack recycling drop-off, but looking at a variety of drop-off points. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, city businesses.
Does that keep it broad enough, the city businesses? Oh, sorry.
I'm not writing the amendment, so if I'm just trying to make sure that you are...
Lord Mayor, can I suggest that the vote of the office ask whether you could incorporate that again?
I did actually just ask that of governance to see whether we could do that. It comes back as the...
I'm happy to incorporate it into the original motion.
Okay.
In the spirit.
I know that you've been trying to work together, so if we can incorporate it in the original motion, I'm very happy to do that, and the seconder is obviously happy to do that. Okay, so how do we do? Thank you, Judy. Councillor Kerr.
So, a question for administration. So, blister packs, presumably presently they're placed in the yellow recycling bins. Does anyone know what happens? No, they're not. So along with other
landfill.
Along with other soft plastics, they're not placed in the yellow recycling bins. They're placed into the red recycling bins.
Yeah.
Look, I won't be exporting this motion. I think that there's a reason it's not being recycled at the moment. But the problem is that there are any number of other items, and there is a vast bulk of things that are not recycled presently, that are placed in red bins for obviously sound reasons. I don't know that changing a decentralised system for recycling, where recycling is already established for that which can be recycled, into a specific one for the council to pick up, is going to change things in the long run at all. And I think it will just place an unnecessary burden on the administration at a time when we need to be ensuring that we are not letting costs spiral out of control given COVID. So I think that the other problem is there's sort of a thin edge of the wedge. You end up creating an assumption that people can bring rubbish to central council locations to be dropped off. That can cause all sorts of problems for the administration as well. I do think on balance, because this is just one item out of a billion of things that are thrown in bins, I don't think that it makes sense, and I won't be supporting it.
Thank you. Members, any other speakers? Councillor Hyde? Councillor Martin, did you?
If I have an amendment, does that need to be dealt with after this?
You can do it now.
I can do it now.
Mm-hmm.
Just following on from what Councillor Counsellor said, investigates a recycling drop-off point at city businesses and our community centres. So take medication blister pack, and at the end of one put 4, and then put blister pack, and then I want to list a couple of other things.
Investigates a recycling drop-off point at city businesses and our community centres for medication
blister pack.
Blister pack. Can you explain to me what the difference is?
Blister packs, just any blister packs actually. No, I'm going to list some further things. Soft toys for blister.
Sorry, go on.
For blister packs, batteries, and small electronics.
If I can just draw members' attention to point 4 in the admin comments, where you actually have collection points at libraries and community centres, including North Adelaide, which have batteries, brick tags, bottle tops, toothpastes, etc.
Not polystyrene though, which is also...
No.
But that would of course be incorporated into this investigation. And could I just seek clarity from the administration that they would take it that our community centres also refers to libraries?
Would you incorporate libraries into community centres?
Yes.
And sorry, through you, Lord Mayor, to governance, could we please list and polystyrene as well?
So,
sorry, Lord Mayor. There was a further point. So 2 becomes 3, and under 1. So a new point under 1 that the above report considers other waste or categories of waste that may be recycled in such a way noting the City of Adelaide's recent bin audit.
Can you just say that? Noting
the City of Adelaide's recent bin audit. Waste composition.
Waste audit. Waste audit.
Would have been easier with clear
waste audit. Okay, looking for a seconder. No. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Snape for bringing this, and Councillor Couros for highlighting that it can be broadened, and I think it can be, and indeed it should be. We have done a lot of work on waste. Recently, we have new waste strategies. We've conducted a waste audit, so as Councillor Donovan rightly points out, we should have a very, very well-developed and accurate idea of other opportunities for recycling within our city. There is definitely demand for people to recycle properly. The will is there, and it is incumbent upon the council to provide the way. That's what I hope can be achieved with work that comes out of this report. Some of these things, indeed, it may not be feasible to have recycling points for all our community centres. Some of them it will be feasible. These are the sorts of things that such an investigation will tell us. Of course, Lord Mayor, we recently have had a new waste policy internally here at the City of Adelaide, where we now have 5 bins of different categories across all of our corporate services and buildings and what have you. It's an excellent initiative to ensure that our waste is sorted properly, and by sorting it properly, as it becomes waste, we can ensure that it can be recycled properly, which is incredibly important to protecting our local environment and preserving that environment for future generations. So I just want to reiterate the thanks to Morag for what she's done. I wasn't aware. I don't pop many pills, so I don't have many blister packs to dispose, but maybe later in life I may have to.
I don't think it's got anything to do with your age, Councillor Hunt.
No, certainly. But nevertheless, now I know where they can be disposed of.
Members.
And at the conclusion of this report, hopefully we'll have a few more options for that.
Thank you. Councillor Knoll, did you wish to speak?
Just very quickly, only because, I have a great interest in this area, and I think we're already doing so much great work. We're already leaders across many areas, so I think this only just now it supports all the initiatives we've got, but we're also doing a lot of that work, so I think this would certainly help, and it's a start, and it broadens it out, and we need to do a lot more of it. So I think it's just it's in keeping with who we are.
Members, Councillor Martin, and then Councillor Donovan.
Look, what a terrible waste of time and effort. What a waste. Councillor Snape proposed a simple measure to assist with the collection of blister packs which currently go into landfill. It's currently undertaken by one person in North Adelaide. He was simply proposing that we simplify that process and assist with recycling. Now we have this complex, complicated motion that's been crafted on the fly by a group of waste experts who are truly waste experts, wasteful I'd say, in producing a whole range of proposals that are pointless. We already collect batteries at the community centre. Small electronics bins are provided by retailers. Bunnings is the perfect destination, and they provide bins of some proportion, 5 metres by 3 metres, into which television sets and other electronics go. And we're proposing to somehow replace that as well. And polystyrene is a joke. Polystyrene is already the source of substantial income for tips, not necessarily the City of Adelaide's, and here we are proposing to move into that business. Now, Lord Mayor, I've heard reference to our new system here at the City of Adelaide, and I was hoping it wouldn't come up, but it's come up. There are 5 bins now placed in areas around the building, and our waste paper baskets are gone. And so every time you blow your nose, open a biscuit, have a lifesaver, you're forced to get out of your seat and walk 2 minutes to a bin down the corridor. It was 10.5 minutes I spent yesterday traversing from my office to the bin, and I calculated if we did the same calculation for every employee, we would lose 3 people per week. 3 people.
It's good for your health.
It is
and
nonsense. And moreover, the biggest joke is that if you go and have a look at our bins at the side, they are the same bins. So it doesn't matter what you put in there, the same bins are in use. This from the same minds. Lord Mayor, spare me. Everyone just vote this down and go home.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Donovan.
We might lose 3 people, but think of the health gains. Oh my goodness, incidental activity.
I know.
I think the blister pack idea is sound. The thing though that it did prompt is if we're going to look at something like blister packs that's so very specific, then it does make sense to go back to the report that has already been done. Really, we've done this massive waste audit, so the good news is I think so much of the work has already been done. We can go back, we can have a look at that and see. The thing that I would be interested in is what volume of our waste is blister packs, what volume is whatever else in these small categories that are not easily recyclable. We know there's a series of different drop-off points for things like small electrics, batteries, light globes. We know there's a series of drop-off points for Planet Arc, very specific things like makeup wands and those sorts of things. But is there a category of waste that we could be more effectively recycling? That would be interesting. And can we integrate it in some way into I know some small businesses have looked at if they have a drop-off point for something, it actually brings customers to their doors. So, is there anything in that realm that we can consider? I know that already much has been done in this area, and probably we haven't yet seen some of the outcomes from the waste audit that are still underway. So I will support the initial motion incorporating the amendment, because I think if we're going to look at something like blister packs, then we might as well look a little bit more across the range.
Thank you. Councillor Curry, you've already...
No, I thought it was the previous. But that's
did you wish to speak? My apologies. You can speak to the amendment because you spoke to the... No, sorry, I'm just talking to Councillor Curry for the moment. Sorry, my pen. Sorry. Oh, thank you, Councillor. You've taken a spoken now. Councillor Couros, did you wish to speak to the amendment?
Oh, yeah, only just to say that I was planning on bringing in a motion next month to expand on this. That's why I initially amended it to a report, because I didn't want to take away the good work of that's been done by a North Adelaide business owner. But Helen is absolutely right. We should be looking at it in a more broader sense. And thank you to Councillor Hyde for listening to me speak and prompted him to add everything in without. But I would rather have given it more thought to with administration to brought this next month. But I will support this because it's the intent I was looking at.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to the amendment? I'll go back. Councillor Hyde, do you want to sum up on the amendment?
No, sum up.
Members to the vote, those in favour? Those against, too late, I'm sorry, I've already gone to the vote. That was carried. I'm sorry, I'm just going to do that vote again. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried.
Council members, the division has been called on the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment, please stand. Remain standing till all names have been called. Councillor Couros, Councillor Kira, Councillor Ho, Councillor Snape, Councillor Hyde, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Donovan and Deputy Lord Mayor.
That becomes a substantive. Would anybody else like to speak to it? Just before we do, I'm also going to say thank you to Councillor Snape for bringing in the motion, and it would be a privilege to commend formally Maureen Horton for the services that she's done. I look forward to the report coming in a very short while. Over to you, Councillor, to sum up.
Okay, well, thank you. It is quite a melting pot of motion and quite an experience for me as a new-ish councillor. But I do generally welcome the input of the Chamber and my fellow councillors, and a special thanks to Councillor Couros and Councillor Hyde for such contributions. I just hope this doesn't slow down us getting the blister packs, the blister pack recycling sorted. But at the end of the day, it's a good motion. We need to do as much recycling as possible. In regards to my colleague, Councillor Martin, I welcome the 5 bins, but yes, it could be a bit closer. I broke a fingernail the other day and I was wandering around trying to find somewhere. So, look, I just thank the Chamber, thank the Lord Mayor for your comments as well, and put it to the floor.
Members to the vote, those in favour, Those against? That is carried. Members, that takes us to 17.2. Councillor Martin, Central Market Disruption Strategy.
Lord Mayor, I have read the administration's comments and I want to make 2 points. It does answer many of the questions I had. It does not answer the one that Councillor Knoll asked for a report on by January, that is the possibility of options for a supermarket in the area. But if the administration were prepared to provide some advice in relation to that, I am prepared to withdraw this, not least because I don't think I've lost the will to live after that discussion there a moment ago. I just couldn't bear the thought of
so
the
continuing.
wordsmithing continuing. Yes, I am withdrawing it.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, CEO, can I just ask when the report is coming through?
Thank you to the presiding member. I understood it was March or April that report was coming through.
Thank you. Members, that takes us to 17.3, which is Central Market Arcade Tenants. Councillor Martin?
Lord Mayor, I recognise that the administration does not support this motion and advises against it. And given that the administration advice is usually followed by Team Adelaide, I will withdraw.
Councillor Martin, you are withdrawing the motion. Members, that takes us to 17.4, Liberal Government Botanic High Promise. Councillor Martin?
Lord Mayor, just before Councillor Martin begins, given this reference to Liberal government and I'm a candidate, as part of that governing party, I'll declare an actual conflict of interest, as this may or may not benefit me in the future. There is no material benefit one way or the other for this one, but I will be leaving the room.
Thank you.
Do Liberal Party members have a conflict, Lord Mayor?
Sorry?
Do Liberal Party members have a conflict?
The conflict of interest is up to the individual members to decide if they have a conflict.
And just to be clear, Lord Mayor, that's because of my candidacy.
Candidacy, thank you. We did record that.
Which has never been a conflict in the past.
Correct. Councillor Martin?
Yes, Lord Mayor. Do you want me to begin speaking?
Well, I'd like you to seek a seconder.
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Couros. Councillor Martin.
Okay. The extension of Botanic High to Frome Park is a central plank of the Liberal policy going into the state election. It will be at the cost of Frome Park, a slither of land which was remediated by the City of Adelaide some years ago. Councillor Moran would remember, if she were here, she would remember that it cost a great deal of money for the site to be dug up, the soil removed, it to be remediated. It was, unfortunately, also towards the back of that lot, an Aboriginal burial ground that was disturbed. It was nominated by the state government in its planning code amendment for the riverbank zone, along with Helen Mayo Park, the stadium site, for development. Now, this council supported the government's planning code amendment to the riverbank zone to allow that stadium, but we did not support the loss of Frome Park in our submission to the state government. And we said on page 22 of that submission, City of Adelaide Precinct 3 Expansion Innovation Zone to Adelaide Botanic High, and this is our voted agreed position. The City of Adelaide does not support the extension of the innovation subzone to the proposed location. Council asserts that there's no valid reason given for the rezoning of this site from Adelaide Parkland Zone. The school has existing land use rights, and if the intent is to retain the open space link, then there's no need for the area to be rezoned. Council considers that the rezoning of the park puts it at risk as it enables the transition from open green space to an ancillary area for Lot 14 and for the Adelaide Botanic High School. That's our view, our policy. Now, despite that, the Marshall government have said that they wanted not only Helen Mayo Park for the stadium, but they want to take Frome Park as well. And it is not, in my view, it is our view, the City Council's view, not appropriate for the reasons outlined. And this motion seeks to tell the government, the opposition, and state parliament generally, including the leaders of smaller groups, that we're opposed to it and we remain opposed to it. Because it is something that constitutes an unnecessary grab of parklands. Now, I recognise that this is a very probably futile gesture, but I think it's one that the city ought to be making.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Couros, did you wish to speak? Members? Anybody else like to speak? Deputy Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, just a quick question. Is this motion essentially asking for an extract from our previous position on the code amendment?
That's how I read it. It's quoting from our submission.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Noel, did you wish to speak?
Sort of, because I haven't looked at it that closely in regards to the government's current submission. That is, so because our position is that we want to keep the green space leading into Botanic Gardens, and I don't know quite how much it's taking. Can you explain to me?
So when they redid the innovations sub-precinct zone, it protects the eastern side, which is where the burial ground is, and it goes as far as the line of trees, which is approximately in the centre of Frome Park. So that is what was rezoned under the new code amendment. So it's approximately half the park.
Half the area.
Half of the area of the park, yes. Members? I might say a few words if that's all right before Councillor Martin sums up. So I think Council was very clear. We spent a lot of time in our deliberations on the Riverbank Code Amendment and the 4 subzones within that. There was a lot of work done in our response, both through Catatilla, the Parklands Authority, and also through the Chamber. I think it is fair and reasonable to reaffirm that position now, even though understanding that a new zone has been put in place through the through the Riverbank Code Amendment, and we will continue to work with the state government for the best possible outcome both for the parklands and the city. So, given that it has been an announcement, and I haven't seen any opposition to that announcement from the opposition, I would assume that the school will go ahead in that area currently designated the innovation zone. So, Councillor Martin, I'm very happy to deliver that quote from our submission back to the state government.
And the opposition.
And the opposition. Would you like to sum up?
Summed up.
Members to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Thank you. That is carried. Eddie, would you mind getting Councillor Hyde back? I think he might have disappeared into my office. I do ask members perhaps not to use my office as a waiting area. Members, we have one final motion on the agenda tonight, 17.5. Councillor Hyde, flooding on South Terrace. Would you like to move your motion? Seek a seconder?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move and seek a seconder.
Members, look for a seconder for the motion before we thank Councillor Hyde.
Thank you. This is a very important issue to ratepayers in the southern part of the city. Many ratepayers, including the St Andrews Hospital and surrounding precinct. We know, and those that have lived through it know, that there are substantial flooding issues that occur in South Terrace. And of course, earlier in this meeting, Councillor Martin highlighted that we would not accept issues such as ponding and the like on any other terrace, and that we should not accept them on Kingston Terrace, why I'm here to say the same about South Terrace and around Hutt Street and Hutt Road. Lord Mayor, it is true that the Brown Hill Keswick Creek works are important to the flooding profile and risk in the southern part of the city. But I can say, as someone who's seen it on a frequent basis, that the works as they are, the previous works done to the creek adjacent Hutt Road have not helped address this matter. The detention basin in Victoria Park will not help address this matter. And that is because the flooding, Lord Mayor, is not because the creek's banks have burst. The flooding is because of where water runs down Hutt Road and where water runs down South Terrace, and it pools at our intersection and around our intersection there, and that intersection is frequently closed. Now, to my mind, increasing the capacity of the creek, to which the water does not adequately flow towards in the first place, is not going to fix that. That is why I believe these designs were in part prepared in the first place, because we know that the Brown Hill Keswick Creek stormwater management project was well underway by that point in the first place. So, Lord Mayor, when you've seen a hospital flood during the middle of a pandemic, it certainly spurs one into action, and one who is in local government and appreciates that local government has stormwater management as one of its core responsibilities. That is the spirit within which I'm bringing this motion. Of course, there was a previous motion that I brought on the topic, and I didn't see that eventuate, and upon further investigation, it's because buried deep within the administration comment, it said, oh, we have done previous designs. What it didn't say was that we consider this to have adequately addressed the motion, so we're not going to do anything even if it's passed. So upon following it up again, I'm again putting this one on the agenda, because this is a compromised position with the administration, even though I think these works can and should be begun within this financial year.
Councillor Hunt, reserve your right. Members, would anybody else like to speak to that? Councillor Martin?
Look, I'm confused, Lord Mayor, and I don't wish to waste everybody's time, but I understand what Councillor Hyde is saying. I don't understand the administration's linking of the pooling problem he's talking about, and its explanation that the Brown Hill Keswick Creek stormwater management project has ameliorated that problem. Could the administration explain to me what is the relationship between pooling on South Terrace from water flowing on Hutt Street and the Brown Hill Keswick Creek stormwater project?
Certainly, Councillor Martin, CEO.
Thank you. Through the presiding member, I'll pass to Mr McCready, who's been heavily involved in the Brown Hill Keswick Creek project from day one. But just to be clear, I don't interpret pooling the same as flooding. And so when we talk about pooling on the road, that's very different from a flooding issue. So, but I'll pass to Mr McCready to explain.
Through you, Lord Mayor. Brown Hill Keswick Creek is, as Council will be aware, was a programme of 5 councils to eradicate flooding issues in a 1 in 100 year event. The significant hydrology has been undertaken around what is Parks 16, Parks 20, and Glenside, which is above Park 16. Glenside has been completed. The Park 16 detention basin is nearing completion, plus Council's undertaken significant works in regards to creek widening. It's the belief of Brown Hill Keswick Creek, with the modelling that's been done by Tompkins Engineering, that will mitigate the flooding issues in and around that area. And until such times as the detention basin is fully completed, yes, you may have overflows. However, the last significant rain event, which was a number of weeks ago, we actually had people out monitoring, and there was no overflow in the embankments and whatever going on to effectively Hutt Road and down South Terrace, so it was actually mitigated. It's also important to note that we have helped St Andrew's Hospital in regards to temporary measures in the round, so our staff are available until such times as that creek and the associated works are finished.
So if I heard that correctly, the problem which started at Hutt Road has been averted by primarily the Brownhill Keswick Creek project, and so the pooling, flooding, whatever we call it, is not occurring. Is that correct?
Through you, Lord Mayor, effectively that's correct, Councillor, because the water is emanating from upstream and the detention basin is there to actually slow it down so it can actually take it down the catchment, right down into other councils and takes it away from that specific area.
Okay, well, I'm a bit lost. I mean, I expect Councillor Hyde would know what was going on South Terrace, and the administration is saying that's not happening. So I'm lost.
Yes.
And can I also have from administration, which is included in its comments, an estimate for any work of the kind that Councillor Hyde is talking about? It's currently saying that 6 years ago it was $2.2 million.
Correct.
Is that what is being proposed on this occasion? $2.2 million to come out of the 22-23
CEO,
budget?
if I can ask a comment on that.
Thank you, through the chair. So obviously back in 2016 I would have thought the designs would have been different. So although we costed it back at 2.2 mil back in 2016, we would need to revisit those designs and cost them better for council to make an informed decision as part of the 22-23 business planning budget.
I think Councillor Martin, in reading that was the feasibility, so that was the engineer's report, the feasibility, and then the designs, concept designs.
Lord Mayor, look, I'm sympathetic to this, but I'm, and I think every other member would be confused by all this. I'm wondering whether the councillor would withdraw this and ask for the information. I'm happy to support it.
I don't have the information. I'm happy to clarify.
Okay, well,
perhaps when you speak to it, because that's the only way that I can do that.
Okay,
so,
well, I will want to speak depending on what is said, but...
Can I have a point of clarification?
Yes.
Just a brief one. The disconnect occurs because the administration comment and the Brownhill Keswick Creek project is talking about a 1 in 100 flooding event. That is to what it's to avoid, ostensibly for insurance purposes more than anything, actually, because properties can't be insured within the catchment. However, this precinct would flood consistently regardless of a 1 in 100 year flood event, and that's because the water, while it can be made worse by water flowing from the creek, the flooding can be made worse when the banks burst, and the banks don't burst as often. Fundamentally, the flooding issue is caused by water travelling down Hutt Road, where there is, of course, stormwater where the creek goes under the road and the road goes up, and we're not proposing to change that anytime soon as part of the Brownhill Keswick Creek project. The water comes down Hutt Road, and it also flows down from the east as well, following the natural incline, and that's why it accumulates there at the intersection. The Brownhill Keswick Creek project will not fix that.
Yeah, could I suggest then, Councillor, given that we have various information in front of us and we have, I don't know whether there has been funding, given the project hasn't been complete yet, whether that's going to mitigate any of this pooling or flooding there. Can we perhaps ask for, rather than revising the designs from 2016, to do a reinvestigate the pooling at that intersection, and that we can include a project to address that pooling within the 22-23 budget?
With greatest respect, given the antipathy towards this solution, I wouldn't be satisfied with just an investigation. Certainly any revised designs could, if need be, revise downwards or revise upwards to fix it. And that would be up to said engineers and infrastructure experts to deliver that. But
may I also, I'm not sure I can ask, CEO or Tom, are you aware of any flooding in recent times?
Through you, Lord Mayor, the councillor's indeed correct. There has been flooding in that space, but that was prior to the detention basin starting that work, and now that the detention basin is nearing finalisation, that has certainly detained the water and taken it down the creek. It's also important to note that they completely cleared that creek right down to Hutt Street and pulled out a lot of debris to actually allow the free flow of water. All what I'm indicating is, at present, it seems to be mitigating that issue based on the detention basin. But again, if you get more than a 100-year flood, the city would be underwater if you got more. So
yeah, I think we understand that.
But
Sorry, I'm just trying to get some clarification.
Yeah, and if I could further clarify, the creek works were completed some time ago, I think about 18 months ago, and it certainly has had a significant flooding event since then. Or maybe 12 months ago. I might be getting
No, they in fact, the project hasn't been completed. It won't be completed till the middle of this year.
No, sorry, there were creek works on adjacent Hutt Road.
They've been ongoing, yep.
Well, the majority adjacent Hutt Road has been finished for some time.
All right. Members, I think this is before you. It appears the councillor is intent on going ahead with the motion as it stands. So are there any other speakers to this motion? Deputy Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, I'm wondering whether if I can, I don't wish to make this any more complex, but I'm wondering whether if in point 2, whether if we're able to adjust it to allow for some sort of a report or a workshop on this in this financial year, in the current financial year.
If you'd like to suggest some words as a either a variation or an amendment.
Yes. Yeah. If the mover is happy with the variation.
Do you want to see what the words are first?
No, it's okay. I don't think it needs a workshop. We'll just bring it in for next year's budget.
It's up to the Deputy Lord Mayor whether he would like to to amend.
If the mover's happy with it, I'll let it be.
No amendment. Councillor Martin.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect to Councillor Hyde on his last meeting, but it does seem to me that this does require a bit of conversation or discussion. And I understand why he's seeking a conclusion to this. He did raise it in May 2020, and at his last meeting, I expect he would want a resolution. But given that we have on the one hand the administration saying works which could mitigate this problem are ongoing, are not yet complete or have been partially completed, and that monitoring in recent times has shown that there is not the problem that there has been in the past, and given that the cost of this at last estimate was $2.2 million, it would seem prudent to me that we just amend the second part to suggest asks the administration to bring those designs to the next committee meeting discussing the 2022-23 annual business plan and budget. That would ensure that was on the agenda, and I think Councillor Hyde can be satisfied it would be dealt with openly then.
Thank you. I am going to thank you, Councillor Martin.
Do you want me to move that, or
if you want to move an amendment?
Well, if you're planning something else, please tell me.
No, I was actually going to ask the CEO to comment, because of course all projects are considered as part of the budget process as opposed to it being included, because we don't even know what the cost is, what the quantum is.
No, I'm asking for it to be brought to a workshop on the budget plan where it can be discussed.
Then that would be an amendment, Councillor Martin.
Okay, so all I'm asking is that everything stays the same, and 2 is simply
designs and costs.
That the designs and costs be brought to the first meeting of committee able to discuss the project in the 2022-23 annual business plan and budget. Is that reasonable? I'm looking for guidance.
Are you asking for a comment from the CEO?
For you or the CEO? Yep.
CEO, do you want to comment on that?
Thank you, through the Chair. So members will obviously be aware that over the next few months we'll be working with you to build your 22-23 business plan and budget, and one component of that is your capital budget comprising infrastructure renewals and capital enhancements. So I would be able to, working with Mr McCready, bring information through to an appropriate business plan and budget workshop in the coming weeks.
Okay, and so, is the Lord Mayor having doubts about this and wanting to make other changes?
No, it's just that I need a seconder if you're going to take through an amendment. So, it's replacing part 2.
Lord Mayor, can I ask a question?
You may ask a question. I'll just check whether Councillor Martin has finished, because actually I need a seconder for the amendment. Your question?
It's just so much conversation here. I just want to clarify. If the works aren't as what they were budgeted for in 2016, wouldn't that be amended anyway into the works are required to be done? So
yes, the design and the costings would all be amended but this is not what this is asking. This is for it to be brought back to be discussed.
I'm just trying to understand, and I just let this pass first and ask again.
But that's correct. So, Councillor Martin.
You need a seconder.
I haven't got a seconder.
You haven't?
I'm happy to second the person.
Thank you.
Okay. Lord Mayor, I think it's all been said. All I'm suggesting is that there is doubt in my mind as a consequence of the administration comments, of the administration reports, that this problem, which I have no doubt exists, will be ameliorated or not be ameliorated by the work that's taking place on the Brownhill Keswick Creek project. That it has an impact on this particular problem is a matter of some conjecture, but I would expect that in this coming back to committee, those matters would be discussed, and any amendments that were necessary to the designs that would reflect any changes that have occurred would be incorporated, and that the meeting of committee would be able to discuss it. And you will note that the motion is not that it comes to a meeting of committee, which will just be discussed, but in order to meet what seem to be the requirements of Councillor Hyde, that it comes to a budget discussion. And at that point, it would be up to committee to let its feelings and thoughts be known to the administration.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Did you wish to speak?
Only to say, I think this is all fine from my perspective. I think we've had the administration's comment back talking to the previous design, but ultimately a revision of the design plans will involve one of our engineers, or more than our team, going out and saying, actually, what's working is working well and we don't need to do anything, or with this new plan in place, it mitigates 90% of the problem, but there's still a drain that needs to be improved, or whatever. So I have no problem with this or with the amendment, because it will factor in all of the work that has been undertaken, and we'll look at any gaps.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Councillor Couros, did you wish to speak?
Seems to be. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Okay, so South Terrace has been a problem for a very long time. We're saying that Brownhill Creek could fix that problem, but it might not fix a problem. We had got plans in place from 2016 that we devised that could fix that problem, but we didn't go ahead with them because of the Brownhill Creek. This is how I understand it, right? So why can't we just still put that in there, say that we're going to address this issue, and if the Brownhill Creek is going to address the issue and we only need to spend X amount of dollars, then great. Why do we have to have another discussion about something that we know that already is a problem? So I wouldn't think that admin would come to us and say, yep, we need to spend 2.2 million because we're just going to spend it because it's there. I think we're going to adjust ourselves accordingly in order to spend what we have to spend. So I just think we're going around it a long way. So why don't we just say, it's a problem? Why don't we just say, yes, it's a problem, see if we can address it, and just...
If I can comment on that, it's simply, even if it is a problem, to put it straight into the budget without actually doing the normal process that we do through business plan and budget, which is to review all infrastructure projects.
But don't we review it anyway? I mean, we put it in the budget, but then if we don't have to spend that, we just take it out. Am I not understanding that correctly? If we don't end up spending it, we say, yeah, we don't end up spending it, so we spend only 500,000 because we'll drain it a bit easier.
Did you want to comment, CEO?
Thank you, through the presiding member. Look, I can hear the Lord Mayor talking out loud beside me. If I can just remind council members that when it comes to budget and expenditure and how we plan, obviously you have a finite revenue source. You build your capital program against your requirements. If you wish to put something into your capital plan, unless you increase the pot of money that your capital has, something will need to drop out. So what I would suggest, based on a couple of decisions here tonight, when we bring the capital budget through, we'll show you what we had originally intended for the dollars allocated that council has endorsed for 22-23. We will also bring in the other projects that council has discussed and considered tonight, and then members will be able to give their feedback to us on the projects that they wish to prioritise. And it's always a risk approach, so members will remember that we always recommend asset renewals on risk.
Members, would anybody else like to speak? Councillor.
I'm going to speak against the amendment. I'm quite satisfied that if this is a problem, it needs to be fixed. If it needs to be fixed, we will know with enough forewarning whether or not it's going to be too expensive to fix. I think this is a redundant extra step, and I won't be supporting the amendment, but I will support the original motion.
Thank you. Councillor Hyde, did you wish to speak?
I appreciate the interest of members in this. I find myself fighting one of those battles that Councillor Martin has to fight, where a hostile comment is unpicked gradually, but I thank him for giving the benefit of the doubt to this. As Councillor Donovan said, I do think that just revising the designs per the original draft means that they can be revised down, they can be adjusted, and the administration, of course, can give whatever advice alongside that revision that it sees fit. I have no doubt that if this were going to go into the budget sausage maker, it will come out a far reduced project tacked onto the side because the administration does not want to see it done, just as it does not want to see Kingston Terrace done, just as stormwater generally gets neglected within the city. Look, it is what it is. This is just a little guy sticking up for another little guy, being our ratepayer, and trying to ensure that the big guys, being us, who does have a record budget expenditure pegged for in our long-term financial plan for the next few years. And let's just remember, of course, reflecting on the CEO's comments, that expenditure has never been our issue in infrastructure. Delivery has been our issue in infrastructure. It's not a case of swap this one out. You can have this one, but you can't have that one. That's not due to budgetary constraints, not at all. That's actually due to the capacity of our infrastructure teams to deliver. And I appreciate the new director has not necessarily had time to fix all those endemic issues in that portfolio. Nevertheless, this is, again, not a necessary step, and I think if members individually want to see a workshop, perhaps even a design room session could be requested. It doesn't necessarily have to come to a workshop per se. I think the more information around the better, and perhaps even whatever revised designs there are those in the precinct affected by them should actually be consulted as well, but I would prefer the original motion stands.
Sorry, the CEO would just like to make a comment there to correct some things.
Thank you, through the presiding member. So just for clarity, the advice provided to Council tonight isn't just a way of saying no because we don't like it. Just to be absolutely clear, this is expert advice from people who are experienced in engineering and in capital work. So just to be absolutely clear, this wasn't a way of just saying no. And I'm quite comfortable to include it in future budget considerations. And although, as Councillor Hyde has clarified, delivery is a challenge, Councillor Hyde will remember that with a new approach recommended and endorsed by this council around carry forwards, there will soon start to be some challenges just around how much we can deliver. So putting in a project that isn't designed or costed and where admin has said may or may not be required, it will be not good practice for me to sit here tonight and not be able to have an opportunity for admin to have another look at this.
Members, would anybody else like to speak to the amendment? If not, I'll go to the vote on the amendment. Those in favour? Those against? That is lost. We go back to the original motion. Yeah, no, I'm just waiting for that. I'm just checking on. Okay. Are there any other further speakers on this one? If not, Councillor Hyde, if you'd like to sum up.
Only to reiterate that this has been an issue for many years. The fact that these designs were originally done in 2016, and of course we've had 5 winters since then, some very, very wet, including the substantial rain event, of course, in 2017, I think it was September, October, when the statewide blackout happened. It's very, very important that this work gets done. As I said, you don't want to see a hospital flooding in the middle of a pandemic or any time. This is a core responsibility of the council, and I always appreciate the frank advice of the administration, but I'm going to have to wholeheartedly disagree with it. It is an issue, it's our issue, and it has to be fixed.
Members, to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried.
Council members, the division has been called on the motion. All those in favour of the motion, please stand. Remain standing till all names have been called. Councillor Couros, Councillor Kira, Councillor Ho, Councillor Hyde, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Donovan and Deputy Lord Mayor.
Members, thank you. Are there any motions without notice? If not, thank you for your attendance. I close the meeting. Thank you, Councillor Hyde.